West Palm Beach, Florida.
President-elect Donald Trump's lawyers already busy this morning filing an emergency petition with the U.S. Supreme Court to block his sentencing in his New York criminal trial set for Friday, which, if that doesn't happen, he will have to appear virtually or in person. He has indicated that if it goes forward, he would appear virtually. This is after a news conference at Mar-a-Lago yesterday that made several headlines, including Trump talking about merging the United States and Canada. And he also said if Mexico doesn't stop the millions of people crossing our border illegally, he's going to rename the Gulf of Mexico. Trump said Mexico and Canada also need to address trade concerns or else they'll be hit with tariffs.
The House passed the Laken-Riley Act yesterday, but only 48 Democrats joined Republicans in passing it. It's named for the nursing student who was killed by an illegal alien in Georgia. The bill would require federal immigration authorities to detain illegal aliens found guilty of theft-related crimes. It would also allow states to sue the Department of Homeland Security for harm caused to their citizens because of illegal immigration. On Washington Watch, Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett had concerns.
We had over 150 Democrats didn't even vote for that. Where's the outrage? We've got a border that's porous. We've got these cartels bringing children over to be traded off as sex slaves. Where's the outrage? Where are the preachers calling out saying, stop this? Why are we not electing people that are God-fearing or at least adhere to the Constitution of the United States?
An author and national security expert says there clearly are strategic and economic reasons for President Trump to want to obtain Greenland. Chad Groening has more.
President-elect Donald Trump told residents of Greenland that, quote, "We're going to treat you well," as his oldest son, Donald Trump Jr., visited the mineral-rich Danish territory that's home to a large U.S. military base, heightening speculation that the incoming U.S. administration could seek to acquire it. The president-elect later told a news conference that he wouldn't rule out using military force to take control of Greenland, saying that we need it for national security. Bob McGinnis is a senior fellow for national security at the Family Research Council and author of Preparing for World War III. He says there are several countries vying for control of Greenland's resources.
Greenland has all sorts of minerals. It's a large chunk of earth. The Chinese would like to buy it if they could. The Chinese and the Russians are trying to dominate the entire northern cap of this globe through their icebreakers and their establishment of military facilities all over. And of course, Thule, Greenland's been a very sensitive site for us for a long time because it was there to track Cold War Russian missiles heading for the United States. So we have a strategic interest.
And McGinnis thinks Trump's goal is greater cooperation with Greenland.
Often we don't have to own something in order to persuade those people to collaborate and cooperate with us. And perhaps that's what the agenda here is by Trump.
I'm Chad Groening.
And U.S. applications for jobless claims fell to 201,000, the lowest level in nearly a year. More news online at afn.net and the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Do you want to prepare for God's calling on your life to ministry? Many people have a sense that God is calling them to ministry, but they don't know the next step to take. Here's a step that may be for you. Wesley Biblical Seminary offers a new Bachelor of Arts in Christian Ministry that's entirely online, and it will prepare you for whatever ministry God calls you to next. We want to equip you with knowledge and tools you need to confidently fulfill the calling that God has put on your life. Learn more at wbs.edu. That's wbs.edu.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
No, I'm telling you, Australia's an island. We're not going to keep. Are we on the air here? Welcome everybody to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. It's Wednesday, January the 8th, 2025. And thank you for listening to AFR and to this show. Again, Today's Issues. Ed Vitagliano in studio. Good morning, Brother Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Wesley Wildman.
Good morning.
And Chris Woodward.
Hello. To your point, Australia's an island. It's also a nation. It's a continent. and I think we should buy it. Why not? We're on a spending spree. Let's just put it in our Amazon cart.
Okay. After we get through closing out on the Greenland deal.
That's right. Our wish list.
Then we buy Australia, is what you're saying?
Why not?
Yeah, and it was
Some good folks down there.
and we got Panama City or not Panama City.
Yeah, we already own
We
that.
got Panama
At least
Canal.
the Florida one.
That's right.
So that's
We do have a running list.
Panama
though.
Canal you're talking about. You're talking about. I don't think Trump wants to buy the Panama Canal. I think he just wants to use our military and take it over.
Sounds like it. Well, I would
Go down there and
All right,
take names, et
just
cetera,
for
et cetera.
For those
in Canada.
for those who didn't hear the show yesterday, so we had a little fun afterward. Wesley and I don't know. Wesley wasn't pushing hard. He was trying to play the middleman. Steve Paisley Jordan was talking about whether or not Australia was an island, and Steve was going with the
Continent.
Do you know this already?
No, it is a continent. Yeah.
We did.
So we
It's
know
one
what
of the
side
7
you're on.
It's one of the 7 continents that we
You know it
all
is.
learned about.
No, it is. No, I agree. It is a continent. We were joking. Here we go. I shouldn't have even started this.
You did start
It's
this.
going to be
It
5
got-
minutes of wasted time.
It
but-
got Googled yesterday. I Googled them.
yeah, live on the air.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what did you come up with?
Well, here was the question at hand.
Yeah.
You don't want that answer.
The question at hand did have to do with something really in the news, and that is President Trump has talked about buying Greenland
Right.
from, I guess, Denmark, which was news to Denmark. But anyway,
You want a what?
I take that phone call. This is Donald Trump. So hey, somebody puts the phone off to the side with their hand over their receiver. Oh, this guy says he's President Donald Trump. Listen to this. He wants to buy Greenland.
Greenland.
Anyway,
Yeah.
So the question at hand was, I said, none to the audience listening to us. I said, did you know that Greenland is the largest island in the world? You know, I remember that from our trivia show.
Right.
And then Steve said something to the effect, well, Australia is because Australia is a continent.
Yeah.
Not an island. Did he say not an island?
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Well, anyway, at that point, I didn't want to do it, but I just felt like I needed to correct Steve.
Yeah.
And tell him that Australia is an island too. And then Steve gave the definition of an island, which is land surrounded by water on all sides. To which I said, and yes, it was a smart aleck answer, and I regret it, but I did it. I said unto Steve, are you listening to yourself? You're telling me it's not an island, and you just gave the definition of an island, and Australia fits it perfectly.
Yeah.
So that's
how we started.
We
and that
left
went
it
on,
there.
Yeah.
So when you started the show, you pretended
I
like
was
we
pretending
still arguing
because our
about it.
listeners were thinking yesterday, because I know what they were thinking.
Yeah.
They were thinking, would Tim just shut up about this island continent stuff because it's not important?
Right.
Okay. So I wanted to make fun of that by acting like I was still talking about it.
Still talking about it.
I'm
All
still
right.
talking about it today.
I'm tracking with you.
So, listen, in the big scheme of the universe.
I could make this conversation go another 10 minutes, but I'm going to behave. I'm going to go to my coffee
All
now.
right. So,
We'll go to my coffee now.
is Australia a continent and an island, Ed, or do you know the answer to that definitively?
Yeah, it's a continent, not an island, only because there are the people who study geography have specific names for specific phenomenon, and if it's a continent, it's not an island. Now, I just made that up.
Okay, so two
just
things can't be true at one time.
That is
on that.
You're correct.
All
Two
right.
things cannot be. No, I'm completely making
I
it
think
up.
we left this yesterday as we just should agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Didn't we, Wesley?
We did.
After you Google me?
I did.
I made
you know what?
I read this to you yesterday.
But
Low
y'all
tide-
believed it, didn't they? Because I sounded like I knew what I was
Yeah,
talking
you
about.
did. You
Use
did.
some words that made me have to think. Says low tide elevations are areas of land that are not above the surface during high tide are generally considered islands.
Yeah. Well, also
That clears things up.
Also, I think
That's what I said.
it's inappropriate to Google your dad
That's
on
fair.
live radio,
Which
too.
is also true.
Yeah, that's also true. I don't care if you are right. Yeah. You shouldn't do that to your father.
That is also true.
Chris, over to you. What's in the news, Chris?
Top that, Chris.
Has Greenland been bought yet, Chris?
No, well, actually, Denmark. I mean, if we want to keep it here, the head of Denmark is making the news for telling Donald
They
Trump.
have a king, don't they?
Well, it's a
Prime Minister.
Figurehead.
yes.
Oh, the king's a figurehead.
The individuals that run the nation we call Denmark have informed President-elect Trump that Greenland is not for sale.
Is that how they answered it?
Yeah, that's what they said. Greenland is not for sale.
Oh,
Which
okay.
to which only will make Donald Trump go.
There was no expletive.
Well, I've got 5 words for this gentleman from Denmark.
Okay.
The art of the deal. Okay. We'll see. We'll see.
All
if
right,
it's
listen.
for sale.
I was talking to a few guys this morning about this. This sounds funny. That is the idea the United States wants. The United States, through our president-elect, wants to buy Greenland.
Mm-hmm.
And President Trump said yesterday, make Greenland great again. Anyway. Oh, my. Trump's half comedian.
Yes.
You got to, huh?
I am looking forward
I think
to the
he laughs
next
at
4
himself.
years.
But then you don't.
gonna be
He
great.
blurs the line between reality and
Which is why he's perfect for Babylon B.
yes, well, yeah, or you don't, yeah, because he could say something real and you put it on Babylon B.
Right.
So, listen. I said to the folks we were talking, I said, in all seriousness, we have purchased land in our country's history, as other countries around the world in history have. So that in of itself is not ridiculous idea. We bought, the Louisiana Purchase.
Like 2/3 of the country.
We bought Alaska from Russia.
Yeah.
What, 150 years ago or so? I mean, it wasn't been that long ago.
Well, the Louisiana Purchase was like 1803.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I know.
You get that
So-
for a bargain too.
Yep.
$3 million bucks.
We did. So, but I think France was desperate at the time. They
were.
owed like,
We were in a war.
That's what happens
Well,
when you let Napoleon run things.
well, they were in heavy debt to like Nigeria, and they had to have some way to pay off.
Josephine got scammed by a Nigerian prince on the
Right.
internet.
That's what happened. You don't believe me? Read the Babylon Bee. So
She bought
anyway,
a Toyota for $1.
So I think President Trump is, if you ask him, would say, yeah, I'm serious about buying Greenland, because you would say, why? Now, he may not tip his whole hand, but the potential for natural resources there, gas, oil, I don't know, what, you name it, fish, I don't know, what all he would probably, and the fact that you could put American military bases there, which would be something to counteract Russia and maybe
And
China
cold.
and somebody, huh?
And cold.
And cold.
Big
Yes,
and
it's cold.
let's look at, it's not exactly a tropical paradise.
He's not going to
Yeah.
put
It
a
is
golf
an-
course there.
It's an ugly
Right.
landscape.
I don't know why.
You're
in the
not
year
going
of our
to
Lord-
hang on a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to throw this one thing
Yeah.
in. It's not like you're going to ruin the landscape by putting up some
Trump Tower.
mining coal.
Sure.
I mean, it's 50,000 people, and the land is pretty ugly.
Yeah, but it's
good.
but it's enormous.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, the funny part of it aside, as funny as it sounds, that's probably what he's thinking. Trump
Yeah.
is thinking, but to buy Greenland. But anyway, you would have to buy it from Denmark, because Greenland is a territory of Denmark.
Well, yeah, but you could foment discord. You could just use
foment it.
You could use the CIA
Yeah.
to get the people of Denmark demanding independence from Denmark, the people of Greenland, rather, to demand independence from Denmark, then you buy it.
Yeah.
It's not like we've
You're
never done that
shrewd.
before.
You've
Yeah.
read the art of the deal.
Yeah.
Next story, Chris.
Well, our fellow Americans out in Southern California would probably rather be in Greenland today versus where they are. And I say that because thousands have fled as wildfires burn out of control in and around Los Angeles. Homes have been destroyed. Homes are threatened.
This is bad.
It really is. And this is one of those stories where, unfortunately, like television kind of outdoes radio just based on things like pictures and video alone. If you have not seen images from Malibu, especially. Just imagine the sky being filled with smoke, and that's pretty much what's going on there in Southern California. We have a lot of sound about
the
story
sky
here.
for miles and miles and miles.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about. I'm watching the video on TV right now. Wesley, you were reading how many people are without power? 35,000?
30,000 homes have been evacuated because of
the wildfires.
That's right.
We're talking about this annually now. I mean, but they've experienced this for decades, right? You have these winds, sometimes called the Santa Ana winds, and they cause these fires to jump, and you can't stop them. They basically have to almost burn out.
And they spread very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on, and this is in the Los Angeles area. What's
Malibu, Pacific Palisades neighborhood. That's actually a hillside area along the coast dotted with celebrity residences and memorialized by the Beach Boys in their 1960s hit Surfin' USA.
My understanding is when these fires get started with these winds, like you're talking about the Santa Ana winds, they can outrun people. You can't outrun the fire. That's why they try to evacuate people
early. Yeah.
And it's erratic. You don't know where it's going to spread, but it'll jump.
Yeah.
Because
of the winds.
Because of the winds.
And they say it's dry out there too now.
Yeah.
So it's bad. It's a bad situation all through. Now, you're talking about Malibu and what's the other town?
The Pacific Palisades.
Those are towns that are north of Los Angeles itself. If geography serves me correct.
I've never experienced anything quite like what we're seeing now or what we hear about with these wildfires, much like we don't usually in Mississippi hear about, being snowed in, so to speak. So, it's hard to imagine looking at this, that's taking place right here in or not right here, but in California right now as we're sitting here.
Yeah.
Well, look at the video. We're looking at the video. See these trees just, if they're dry, I guess they just burn up, and then the flames go 50 feet in the sky, and then the embers, is that what you call them?
Yeah, sure.
They fly around, they jump, and all of a sudden you have other homes on fire. It's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Well, and to Wesley's point, part of the reason why we don't have these kinds of phenomena in Mississippi or other parts of the Southeast is because we get a tremendous amount of rain.
Yeah, that's
during the year. What do we get? Like Mississippi gets like 58 inches a year. California
they might get 20.
Yeah,
15 or 20.
And they have environmental policies that make it illegal to have burn-offs where you burn some of that underbrush with a controlled fire so that it doesn't provide kindling for these huge fires.
Yeah, it's a bad situation. Very, very tragic. These folks losing their homes, their cars. Steve Jordahl showed us a video this morning this is out in Malibu area. There's a highway, and there's cars on the highway. The video was of cars that were abandoned on the highway. People got scared, the smoke, and they were stuck in traffic. True?
Yes.
So what had happened was they brought in a big bulldozer. So the bulldozer is on the road pushing cars off the road, right?
Yes. So emergency vehicles and other people who need to flee.
I don't know how many cars they had to push off the road, but you could sell the stack. I saw at least
cars too.
15 or 20, 25 cars they were having to push out of the way.
Goodness.
But you can imagine these cars stalled out. Well, the people I tell you, too, what has scared people, I'm guessing, is after what happened in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Was it
Maui?
Maui. That fire, how fast that spread, same type thing. And some people were trapped in their cars.
Yes, and others were diving into the ocean.
Yeah.
To get away from it.
Yeah, so I imagine so they're stalled out, there's smoke's coming, they feel a fire or something, they run.
Yeah.
They leave their car there. That's what was happening. But bulldozers pushing cars away.
So where are we in this? Is it at the beginning stage, or has this been going on for a couple of days?
I would say beginning stages.
Okay.
The flames from a fire that broke out Tuesday evening is how the Associated Press words it.
Yeah.
I actually have sound from various people that evacuated. It's kind of a montage, if you will. Let's
Play your montage.
Clip one.
You don't know what's going to happen. And the wind keeps shifting. And we've seen on all 3 or 4 hillsides right here, fire just pop right up. At some point, you're just like, this was inevitable in some ways.
I mean, I've never seen anything. Fires were this close to the cars. People left their cars on Palisades Drive. Burning up the hillside, the palm trees, everything's going. And the wind and the firemen are great, but you can only do so much.
It seems to me, let's get out of here. Whatever I lose, and there's nothing I can do about it.
How many more horses do you have?
We have a couple we just let loose over there. We're trying to get as many as we can out. Yeah.
Are any homes out there on fire?
Honestly, I did not pay attention. I just drove straight to the barn to get my horses out.
Now, according to Fox, this is one news outlet, but according to Fox right now, at least 4 wildfires are now tearing through Southern California. A 5th has been contained. So it is spreading and getting worse.
You don't think about things like the guy with the horses.
Right.
You know, I mean, you hear about the fire, okay, it's X number of miles away, and then you turn around and it's closing in on your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, in that kind of situation, that's kind of he's talking about he just turned the horses loose, right?
Well, there was 2 he couldn't I guess traffic out.
That's what I'm saying. So you just turn them loose so they're not stuck in the barn when it barn burns down.
But that doesn't mean they're going to get away.
Mm-hmm.
But at least they got a chance.
They got a chance.
Yeah.
Better than being in the barn.
There is a television drama that comes on CBS called Fire Country, and it's fictional, but it's about people that fight wildfires in California, Northern California specifically. And more often than not, episodes involve, they're doing a prescribed burn or something to kind of prevent a fire from spreading, and then they're like, oh, no, the winds are shifting. And there was an episode maybe 2-3 weeks ago where a person was trying to get a horse out of a barn. So, I mean, these are, things that we're seeing and hearing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I can't imagine being in that situation, and all of a sudden, one day you're fine, and the next day your
house is
burned down,
and all your possessions, everything.
That's what
well,
I'm
I've
saying.
mentioned before that last time we talked about fires in California, that from several years ago saw videos of people trying to drive out of their neighborhoods. The fire had come up so quickly. Remember those videos where people had fire on both sides of the road, and you could hear the people talking as they're talking to someone on the phone. They're driving. There's fire in the road, and you're going, are they going to be able to get out? And I can't imagine burning to death. That's in the top 5 of ways you don't want to go.
Yeah.
I thought this conversation was about one fire in one location in California, but it looks on this map right here. Are we also talking about there's multiple fires and
Yes.
there are.
Yeah,
that's what Chris just said. One of the 5 has been contained.
Yes.
One of the 4.
I'm looking at a map, and this is a map. This is from Fox News, a map of ongoing wildfires in Southern California. There's Palisades, Woodley, Eaton, Hearst, and Tyler. These are all fires. Now, I don't know which one of those is contained, Chris mentioned, but it's
anyway.
USA Today says at least 2 people are dead. That's going to go up. We're going to know far more tomorrow, maybe even by the end of today.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Chris. Chris, next story.
A bit of breaking news. President-elect Trump today, this morning in fact, filed an emergency petition to the U.S. Supreme Court in an effort to block his upcoming sentencing in New York v. Trump. This is the Judge Juan Merchan trial. Judge Merchan set Trump's sentencing in New York for January 10th. So Trump, in a, I guess, last 11th hour type attempt, is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to prevent sentencing there. I can read a statement here. President Trump's legal team filed an emergency petition with the court asking justices to correct the unjust actions by New York courts and stop the unlawful sentencing in the Manhattan DA's witch hunt. That's according to a Trump spokesman in a story published by Fox. We'll see whether or not the Supreme Court answers. They don't have to.
Is Friday.
It is.
Correct?
So we're looking at 48 hours.
So you guys correct me if I'm wrong. In terms of this case, my understanding is that the judge himself has previously said this is not going to involve a sentence. The sentence will not involve incarceration.
Mm-hmm. That was from a few days ago, yeah.
Yes. So the question then becomes what the sentence would be, and obviously, is this simply so that the judge can make sure that the word felon or convicted is stuck next to the Trump name before he is inaugurated?
Some people have thrown that out there, that they're just trying to make a legacy for themselves and ensure that there's some sort of stain on Trump's next 4 years in office, and forever, quite frankly.
I don't know. I don't have much of an opinion on this. Do you, Wesley?
I don't care.
Okay. I'm right next to that. I'm living next to you there on that.
Personally, I don't think the Supreme Court is going to intervene in this. I think that the Supreme Court's probably going to say, if this is unjust, you have to prove that on appeal.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Because this is a sentencing. He's already been convicted.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a sentencing by the judge.
Right.
And the judge has said there's no potential for him actually going to jail. Which one of the cases was this? That's
how I feel about it. That's why I don't care.
I know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He's not going to go to jail. He may get a fine.
Isn't this the case involving?
He'll pay the minimum.
Then he'll appeal. Yeah.
This is the case involving the accusation that he lied on his loans.
That's right.
Isn't that this case?
Yes, it is. But I don't know much more past what you just said.
Yep.
So, but yeah,
Trump was found guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records.
You know, Trump could be thinking, if I got to pay a fine, I'm just going to throw in Greenland. You know what I'm saying? I'll pay a little down payment, and I'll tell them I'll pay the rest with Greenland. What do you think? I mean,
you mean give it to New York?
Yeah, give Greenland to New York
and a potential territory
and
to be
say,
named.
Listen, call it even. That way, he doesn't have to sell off Mar-a-Lago or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think? You think we might be going there?
I don't think he's going to give it to New York. I think
but he hasn't got Greenland yet.
Pretty
So
much
you're trading something you don't actually have in your hand.
That's why I was.
You know what they say.
He pretty much hates the legal system in New York.
Oh yeah.
The country in your
Lawfare.
hand is better than two in the bush.
Is that what they say?
That's an old Australian proverb.
From the island.
From the island of Australia.
Guys, trivia's coming Friday. We need to focus. Guys,
we're
bring this back in.
Poor Wesley.
We have our break to get this together.
Poor Wesley thinks we're going to rein it in.
I don't know what to say.
All right. That's the point of this show.
We'll
be back.
Wesley.
We'll be back, and we'll reset this.
I don't know if they want us back. We'll be back.
We'll be back. We'll NPR you.
That's right.
Okay, we will bore you to no end if you want that.
It's coming.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
In the 6th century BC lived a man by the name of Aesop. He was an extremely wise man in a very practical sort of way. He was a master storyteller whose stories carried with them a great principle. Many of his stories have been preserved and are circulated throughout the world to this very day. One of his stories had to do with a man who had accumulated a great deal of wealth. Instead of spending his wealth to make life more enjoyable for himself, and instead of giving his wealth away to make life more enjoyable for others, he cashed in his wealth and put it all in gold. The man took his gold and went into a forest near his home and buried it in the ground. Then each day he would walk out to where the gold was, dig it from the ground, and handle it. He would spend most of his time polishing the gold and keep it shining. After polishing the gold, he would wrap it back up, place it back in the ground, and cover it up again. Day after day, the man would go through the same routine. Go to the woods, dig up the gold, polish it, look at it, admire it, and then replace it. The man was indeed proud of his wealth. One day another man heard about the gold. He hid in the woods and waited. When the rich man passed, the second man followed him at a distance. He hid himself behind a tree and watched as the miser dug up his gold, polished it, and admired it. He watched as the man placed it back into the ground. When the miser left, the second man remained, hiding behind the tree. When the miser had gone out of view, the second man went to where the gold was, dug it up, and placed all the gold in a bag and escaped with it. The next day, the miser made his way back to where he kept the gold buried. Upon arriving, he noticed that someone had stolen his gold. The miser began to scream at the top of his voice, "Someone has stolen my gold! Someone has stolen my gold!" Others who heard him screaming came running to see what the trouble was. When the miser was questioned about it, he told those who had come what had happened. One man in the crowd asked the miser what he planned to do with the gold. "Do with it? Do with it? What do you mean, what did I plan to do with it? I wasn't planning to do anything with it. I was only going to keep it and admire it." "Well, if that's the case," replied the other man, "why don't you simply put some rocks in the hole and admire them? They will serve the same purpose." You know, money is only a means to an end, not an end in itself. You should use your money to benefit yourself and others. And if you don't plan to do that with your money, then get yourself some rocks. They aren't nearly as expensive and are a whole lot less likely to be lost or stolen. After all, rocks are as good as gold to hoard.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Through him we have also obtained access by faith into this grace in which we stand, and we rejoice in hope of the glory of God.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. We're here every Monday through Friday, 10:05 to 11:30 Central Time. And we hope you're having a good day. And I know that, by the way, Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Chris. And I know that a lot of folks are digging out, across a big swath of the country.
From all the snow.
Yeah, and snow and ice.
Yes.
Because snow and ice. So anyway, that's happening. Well, I say digging out. I mean, I don't think the temperatures are going up, but physically digging out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You talked to Ray Pritchard.
Yes, we did.
Good friend.
In Kansas City.
And they had 18 inches of snow.
Apocalyptic.
Yes.
Type thing.
Yep.
And ice.
Yep.
And ice. Anyway, I told him yesterday, and I told our listeners, should that kind of thing ever hit the deep South?
Oh my God.
The South in general. Then it would be the end of civilization. I mean, you would be uncovered in a couple hundred years, and then they would write about this lost civilization called rednecks.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
They would find Dollar Generals scattered around, like
yes.
What is this?
these were people known as rednecks.
Dollar
Generals. They lived in the
Popeye's
southern region
chicken.
of what's called America
Two
now.
more DGs, and that's our new state flower in Mississippi.
When we traveled the other day, I told them, I said, in Mississippi, within walking distance in any direction's a Dollar General.
Oh, yeah.
Almost no matter where you live, like out in the middle of nowhere.
It says they parachute them in.
Yes. They're prefabbed. They're built, the prefab, and then a big, C1 something flies overhead, and they drop it out the back, and it parachutes in. They have some guys on the ground that kind of guide it, and then they lock it down, and then it's open, ready for business.
All right, Ed, what's our next topic, and who's our next guest?
Well, our next guest, I'll start with that, is Jeff Chambly. He's host of the Stand Radio. which is heard on American Family Radio.
He came a long way to be here, too.
Yes, came
talking about, 100 steps or so.
Yep. The Stand Radio is heard Saturdays at 4 p.m. Central Time on American Family Radio. Jeff, welcome to today's issues.
Great to be with you guys. You know, this reminds me of back in the day. I was actually co-hosting today's issues.
Yes.
With Marvin Sanders, Kathy Coates, sometimes with Tim.
Right.
Way back in the day. So, boy, it's great to be back in the
studio. Now, you left for a while to be in the ministry.
Yes.
You're an ordained minister, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So how many years total have you been at AFA/AFR?
Oh, boy. I was at AFA about 18 to 20 years. When I took a 5-year departure,
right,
and then came back. So I don't know, somewhere around 21 years, 22 years maybe.
Jeff left to go be the minister of music,
yes,
at the Calvary Baptist Church in Tupelo, Mississippi, and stayed there 5 years. Did you run out of choir talent or what? Jeff?
You know, sometimes
why did you leave and come back?
You know, between the interim time and the full time role, about 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, just the Lord led me to serve the local church for a season of time.
Yeah.
And the church needed some leadership in music at that period. Yeah. And it was obvious the Lord was opening that door at that time. So that's why I took it. So, yeah.
And so there are, in the Christian life, there are seasons, like there are seasons in nature.
Yeah.
And you do something for a time, and then you go on to your next assignment.
Yeah, but thankfully I had one foot in the door with AFA all the time because I would do some voice work, some production. And so AFA is just a family to me. I mean, this is like coming home.
I always described your voice as the golden voice. I mean, you have a really good radio voice and a voice.
You never said anything like that to me.
Well, and I don't say that about myself.
So that just proves that you don't toss around compliments lightly.
That's correct.
So that was a genuine compliment to Jeff when you see that you haven't said it to other people who work with you.
I would not. I am. What do they call that? Flatterer. I'm not a flatterer.
Right. No, you're not.
Yes.
Oh, I know you're not. So.
All right. So Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, I did an interview with you for the Stand Radio Monday.
Yeah.
The Stand Radio. Excuse me for interrupting. Just for those who don't know, because they don't listen on the weekend. The Stand is the name of our magazine that goes out monthly all across America to our supporters. That's the name of the magazine. Is the Stand, formerly known as the AFA Journal.
Right.
Okay. So what we've done here is, excuse me for interrupting.
No, this is good. We need to do this.
Is what we wanted to do here is we wanted to have a radio program on the weekend that would be complimentary of the content of that magazine and reflected some of the things we're promoting here at American Family Association, right? On our radio network. So Jeff works for the magazine and he works for our radio network. Thus, it was a natural fit to have Jeff produce this weekend show, which is, I don't get to listen a lot, Jeff, but I do know that you cover a lot of guests and news and information that is really interesting, and our listeners, but it's directly connected to what our ministry focus is.
Absolutely. Spot on, Tim. I mean, we have a distinct AFA flavor to the show. I mean, all of our programs do, but we take educating and empowering and activating people very seriously. You know, we talk about the subjects that we cover. One of my primary goals is that the Stand Radio would touch on just about every aspect of the Christian life. You know, Abraham Kuyper had a saying years ago, and I'll paraphrase it, there's not one square inch of creation where Christ does not declare mine. And, you know, the Bible tells us that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. So everything belongs to the Lord. So we cover economics, we cover parenting, we cover education, religious liberty, climate and energy, science, sanctity of human life. Every one of those topics has a gospel application to it. And so we want to get guests to come on and talk about those things.
So just as an example of what the Stand Radio is meant to do. So we have the latest issue of the Stand magazine is a pro-life. It's filled with this particular issue. This is the first time we've done this, dedicated to the pro-life issue. And in vitro fertilization was one of the issues that we deal with from a Christian perspective in this issue. You interviewed me on the article that I wrote to give like Tim said, it's an addition to the material you would get from the stand if you read the magazine.
Exactly.
So what are some of the other guests that you've had on? Nancy Pearcey was one of them.
Nancy Pearcey was one. Let me go down the line with some of these. Let's start with Nancy Pearcey. We had her on to talk about her book, Toxic Masculinity. So we wanted to see what is the biblical worldview of what it means to be a man, and what is this attack on masculinity all about. So Nancy Pearcey was a fantastic interview. Then we had David Bahnsen, who is on Fox Business regularly. He's an economist. He's a theologian. We had him on the program talking about the Christian worldview on work and labor. What does it mean to be an effective steward of creation in labor? So David Bahnsen was on. Then we had Randy Alcorn talking about grief and heaven. What's the new heaven and the new earth going to be like? Jeff King was on talking about the Christian persecution around the world. We also had Calvin Beisner with the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation on to talk about climate and energy. You know, we hear a lot about global warming and the global the goal of eliminating fossil fuels. Well, what's the Christian worldview on that?
Right.
So Calvin Beisner came on and gave us, really a very balanced look at climate and energy. He also talked about, speaking of the issue on the sanctity of human life, we tackled the issue of the so-called threat of overpopulation, which actually is a threat of underpopulation. And so Calvin Beisner came on to talk about the Christian worldview of what it means to populate the earth according to the dominion mandate in Genesis.
This is what Elon Musk talks about all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really is a threat to the developed world, the fact of underpopulation. And the AFA Journal, before becoming the Stand, we covered that, like the Cornwall Alliance. Others are doing the same thing. And the point is that for a couple, a married couple, you have to have 2 children in order to replace yourself. If you have 1 child, if everybody in the world had 1 child, each couple, then after 1 generation, you have cut the population in half. And the problem is it is hard, very difficult to maintain prosperity when you do that. And some people aren't having any children at all.
Well, the Japanese aren't going to be around in 100 years.
That is a distinct possibility.
I mean, the Japanese birth rate is like 0 almost.
It's in the negative.
It could be a case of an entire culture disappearing.
Yeah.
So
I saw something recently between a podcast about this very topic. The climate change thing is interesting because I guarantee you someone somewhere this week, if not already today, is going to blame the winter weather we're getting as well as the California wildfires on climate change.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Even though these are opposite phenomena.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, they had to change that because it used to be global warming.
Correct.
Yeah, that doesn't work anymore. I got a quick question.
Sure.
Are you sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
So for our listening audience, many, if not most, get our magazine, the Stand magazine.
Right.
So in what way does the radio program, which has been podcast and archived, which you can go to find at afr.net at anyone's convenience whenever you want, what would make it, what would be the added value, the difference?
Well, they will get, a lot of people sadly do not get the magazine.
Okay.
And so that they will be able to get a flavor of what the topic is about for a given month if they listen to the podcast. The other side of that is those who do get the magazine will get bonus content. So many times we'll get someone who is interviewed for an article, and sometimes we'll take the topic and pick a different person to speak for it.
Okay.
And so we'll cover a lot of the issues, but no matter what it is, Wesley, we'll always give people the biblical worldview and what they can do to become involved and activated in that theme. So you can go to our website. We have 70 episodes in our catalog on the afr.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, obviously, at afr.net and iTunes. And Spotify, also available there.
These topics are wonderful. Let me just mention a couple here. How to be thankful in every circumstances, raising respectful children in a disrespectful world, biblical roles of husband as wife, and growing up in the family of 10 adopted children. Wow.
Yeah, listen, folks, we had Jeff on because we want our listeners to be aware of all the stuff that's available. If you are listening and you said, magazine, I didn't even know that was available. You can go to afa.net, and there's a little drop-down menu that says The Stand, and you can get signed up for our daily Stand email, because we do have an online content page, and then you can get the print version and you can sign up for that, and then also you can find out more about the Stand Radio. And to find podcasts of the Stand Radio, go to afr.net and click on the drop-down menu for podcasts, and you will be able to listen to all this fine programming that Jeff has created.
What's on this weekend?
Oh, you caught me off guard, Tim. This weekend.
Because you got to record, right?
Well, this weekend, because my mind is split between preparing for the next month's issue, so my brain is actually 2 months ahead. You'll go to afr.net and find out what the show is about this weekend.
That's it.
Okay.
I have the same problem, Jeff. My mind is always 2 months ahead.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Hey, look, let's do it this way. What was the last one? I got it right here. The How to Support Couples Coping with Infertility or Miscarriage. That's the one you were.
So we're in the Sanctity of Life. So this weekend, Calvin Beisner is actually on.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And he's talking about the so-called threat of overpopulation. So we'll talk about Malthusianism. Thomas Malthus, the man back in the 1700s that really started this scare that the world can't support the population. And so Calvin Beisner will talk about that. It was a great interview. And we'll explore that with him this weekend.
You know, I've never understood this alarmism that these folks who promote that we're overpopulating the planet and we're going to run out of resources. I'm going like, well, have you flown?
That's true.
Yeah.
If you fly over the United States, and we have 340 million people. But if you fly over the United States, you're going to fly over vast landmass that is uninhabited. A little town sprinkled here or there. But I'm talking about now, you might say, well, that doesn't mean we have the resources to support more people. Yeah, we do. We can grow more food, and we can. People adapt to. So I mean, I just think, I don't know why the depopulation folks have been successful with their threats.
Well, it actually started back with Tertullian. I mean, he was one of the first ones in Calvin Beisner's.
Okay, tell folks who he was.
So Tertullian was a church father that lived, I think, in the 3rd or 4th century. And he was the first one to say that, there is a concern that the world can't support the growing population. I mean, this goes way back to the Middle Roman Empire. And then Thomas Malthus sort of made that popular in the 1700s. He was a minister in his own right, I think the Anglican Church. And so he just had a bad understanding. The way that I like the way that Dr. Beisner puts this is that for every mouth that is created, there are 2 hands. And so, yes, we have one mouth to feed, but we have the ability to produce and to take from what God has given us in the earth to more than abundantly take care of all the population.
Well, and then Paul Ehrlich in 1968, I believe, released a book that was a huge bestseller called The Population Bomb.
Yeah.
And he was predicting that I think by 1980, you'd have mass starvation all over the world. Well, what Malthus and Ehrlich did not foresee was the huge growth, technological provisions for growing more food with better fertilizers and killing pests and all that. And so there was an exponential growth actually in the production of food, which forestalled these kind of dire predictions. But to your point, one mouth to feed, 2 hands to work and to produce.
Yeah.
God is also honoring his kind of Genesis mandate by giving wisdom and understanding to human beings to feed more people.
Yeah.
And to provide for them.
Thank you, Jeff.
Well, thank you.
We look forward to the show this weekend right here on American Family Radio. We also podcast it. So if you want to hear Jeff's content and subjects and
you can say listen to his golden voice.
Listen to the golden voice. Just go to afr.net, click on podcast, and you'll see Jeff's show and the lineup of guests that he has. It's excellent. You'll try one, see if you won't come back for more.
It's called The Stand Radio.
Yeah, The Stand Radio.
So
AFR.net. Click on
podcast,
and there it is.
So scroll down and you'll find it.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you,
guys.
Jeff.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Jeff.
it.
Appreciate you.
Jeff Shambly joining us, host of the Stand Radio on the weekends here on American Family Radio. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Chris. And again, you're listening to the radio program right now called Today's Issues, and we do current events. That's mostly what we deal with, current events and news items to keep you abreast of what's happening in our country and around the world as best we can. We talked about these wildfires in Los Angeles, California, that are devastating parts of northern Los Angeles County. Is that what it's called?
I think so.
Malibu and
Pacific Palisades,
Pasadena
area.
area.
Talking about that's where a lot of people would have a lot of money live. There's a lot of houses that are worth millions of dollars that are being wiped out.
Right.
Now, a house worth $100,000 is sad that it gets wiped out. I'm just saying this is the home of the rich and famous.
Yes.
And they're having to flee because even they can't be protected from the wildfires.
Right.
So that's a big national, even international news story. Of course, President Trump will be inaugurated
the 20th.
Yeah, a week from Monday.
Mm-hmm.
A week from Monday, so we're not too far away from that. Meanwhile, the current president, Biden, continues to pardon and do ridiculous things, as outrageous things like pardoning.
We covered the ones in Guantanamo Bay. Is that
no? That's what I wanted to talk about.
Okay. Yeah, that was in the news yesterday. We still have this on AFN.net.
Tell folks what happened if they didn't hear it, and people get ready for your blood pressure to go up right here. Go ahead.
Approximately a dozen men from Yemen were sent from Guantanamo Bay, where they have been held for many years. They were sent back to Oman, thanks in part to decisions made by the Obama administration.
They were found guilty of participating in 9/11.
Correct.
Is that
and
right?
Yes, and that's on top of
or were
people.
they found guilty? Excuse me.
I don't think they were ever adjudicated.
Okay, yeah, but
They've
they were
just been
determined by our.
Mm-hmm.
They were connected with
our military to have had a part in it. Thus, they were being held in Guantanamo Bay.
And that's on top of something from several months ago where the masterminds of 9/11 were given a sweetheart plea deal and let go. And that angered even Democrats like Leon Panetta, who served in previous administrations, saying these people should have been executed years ago.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are unhappy with Biden, including members of his own party.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, he's handing out pardons and commutations like he's Santa Claus.
Well, and meanwhile, you got pro-lifers who are faced with the FACE Act and many years in prison, and they're not being pardoned.
Right. And I think Trump's probably going to pardon those people.
By the way, we've sent
out... the comparison in this administration and the hostility toward Christians is, in this case, is...
Yeah, the FBI, the Justice Department, and their persecution of some of these pro-lifers, and we could go into detail, but we've got if you want to go into... We've got an action alert that American Family Association has put out to our supporters, asking President Trump when he gets into office to pardon these pro-life people that have been persecuted, picked on.
Yeah. So if you go to AFA.net, you'll see right in the middle of the website an action alert. We have action alerts generally once a week, sometimes twice.
Right.
And so we are encouraging people to sign a petition to President Trump, President-elect Trump, so that when he is in office and he is inaugurated, that one of his first acts will be to pardon people like Paulette Harlow, who is a 75-year-old pro-life advocate. She has extensive medical issues. She was prosecuted under this FACE Act for simply sitting in the waiting area of an abortion clinic in 2020, and she was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison, 36 months of supervised release, when her husband petitioned the judge before sentencing for consideration of her health issues. The judge, Colleen Collar-Cotelli, basically mocked her faith and said, well, I guess you just have to follow your faith and just trust in your God. I'm paraphrasing. to
So this
help
75-year-old lady,
yes,
and she was protesting abortion.
Sure.
Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
She
Peacefully.
was peacefully. She was sitting in a
it's a waiting area and
waiting
praying.
area and praying. So she probably knew she was going to get arrested for trespassing. I mean, you would think, and she was.
Yes.
But they charged her with the FACE Act. You may say, "What is the FACE Act?" That's an acronym for
the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act.
Because that's what she was doing, right? She was stopping people from going in, right? I'm
no,
being sarcastic.
right. No, this was federal legislation that was passed by the pro-abortion crowd to use against anybody who would protest abortion, like having a sit-in.
And this is a story we're highlighting, but there's many others like this.
Yes,
in the last during under the Biden administration.
Okay, I understand. I don't agree with abortion at all. Obviously, I think it's the taking of innocent human life. But I understand why she would be arrested for trespassing if she wouldn't move. Okay, but she wasn't harming anybody. She was just physically putting herself in a place to pray about the situation, about abortion, and then. So, but here's what we. So, if you want to charge her with trespassing and nonviolent, okay, that's fine. But when you go after somebody like a 75-year-old grandma with a FACE Act, you're trying and 2 years in prison.
Yes.
For this, that's punitive. That is picking on people because you don't like the cause that they believe in. If this 75-year-old woman would have been protesting climate change. And she'd have been trespassing at let's say, an electrical plant, for example, or an oil field, then they would have said, okay, slap her on the wrist.
Pay a fine.
Pay her fine.
You got the
and
show on TV now.
And send her on her way. You would not say, because somebody's sitting in an entrance to an oil field, for example, that they get 2 years in prison.
Right. Well, and if this is a federal law, FACE Act,
right?
So if I go to Popeyes and they didn't cook my chicken right, and I say I'm not leaving until you give me my money back. Well, we're not giving you your money back, and they call the police. Guess what? That's a local issue.
That's right.
I'm prosecuted under local laws, but the FACE Act, which was enacted in 1994 and signed into law by President Bill Clinton, that was meant to punish pro-lifers. Now, I will say this.
It was about the time of Operation Rescue.
Yes. That there were pro-life activists who would chain themselves to doors to keep the abortion clinic from being able to open. I understand the anger of people on the other side of this issue, but to make a federal statute out of that and punish people like this 75-year-old grandmother shows, to your point, Tim, the hostility towards a Christian view of life.
Well, President Trump can do something about this.
Yes.
He can pardon her and some others that we have listed
Paulette
here.
Harlow and others.
So we're petitioning President Trump to do just that when he gets into office, in a few days. So if you want to read more about this and take action, which is what we're about here at AFA, right? And then go where?
AFA.net. You'll see center of the page this action alert. Click through and follow the instructions, and you can sign this petition.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll be back with Steve Paisley Jordahl in just a minute.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
All God asks of you is faithfulness. Headlines in USA Today, did you see it this morning? All the odds are against us. Faithfulness is the word.
There's a place for you on the battle line. Engage in the fight for America's families. Visit AFA.net and then take your position. A message from the American Family Association.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Peter. Wildfires in California are raging near Los Angeles, forcing thousands to evacuate. Fox TV affiliate KTTV Los Angeles, Coco McAvoy, is in a community affected by the Eaton fire with the latest details.
It does feel like it is getting worse here in Altadena, and that's because of the wind conditions and the fact that we have a lot of embers flying as well. So homes burned to the ground here. Also, a lot of cars scorched as well. Many people in this neighborhood were hoping the majority, if not all the people in this neighborhood, have evacuated. Fire crews, police officers have been over the loudspeakers telling people, if you are still in this area, you have got to evacuate for your safety. This neighborhood is on fire. We know the Eaton fire has grown to 2,200 acres.
President Donald Trump is filing a motion with the Supreme Court to delay his upcoming criminal sentencing in New York. Eric Shawn with the latest.
President-elect Trump's lawyers are filing an emergency motion to the High Court to stop his sentencing on Friday. The bid will first go to Justice Sonia Sotomayor because she handles the jurisdiction of New York. She can then refer it to the full court to decide if Trump's lawyers are correct. They argue that Trump's sentencing on his 34 felony counts for paying off Stormy Daniels should not go forward day after tomorrow because the High Court has already given presidents wide immunity for official acts. They claim, quote, the New York trial court lacks authority to impose sentence and judgment on President Trump or conduct any further criminal proceedings against him.
The Biden administration is reportedly in talks with Afghanistan to exchange Americans detained there in exchange for at least one high-profile prisoner held in Guantanamo Bay with ties to Osama bin Laden. Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton says the move echoes that of another president's final weeks in office.
They're going to the exact same place and the exact same program where Obama released 30 Guantanamo detainees in his final 2 years. And what happened to them? 29 of them went back to their home countries, Yemen and Afghanistan, with no accounting for their whereabouts. For all we know, they're back in the fight, threatening Americans.
Meta chief Mark Zuckerberg surprised the high-tech and political world by announcing some changes on Facebook that will encourage more free speech and less censorship. Steve Jordahl reports.
During the COVID pandemic, you could be tossed from Facebook if you mentioned ivermectin. For several years before that, you weren't allowed to question the outcome of the 2020 election or push a biblical view of sexuality. More recently, Facebook had joined the war against so-called misinformation. All that came to an end yesterday when Mark Zuckerberg posted a video where he said they'd gone too far.
The legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact-checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the U.S.
He says he's making several changes to the platform, the first one being to get rid of the fact-checkers and move to a community notes system like X. He's going to emphasize free speech and move away from censorship. He's going to flag fewer posts for their content and bring back the news feed.
After years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice.
Zuckerberg says the re-election of Donald Trump signaled a new era away from wokeism and censorship and toward free speech.
The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
Wall Street is holding a bit steadier, and U.S. stocks are drifting lower, a day after strong reports on the economy stirred up worries that inflation and interest rates may remain higher. The S&P 500 unchanged following its 1.1% slump the day before. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dipped 19 points. The NASDAQ Composite slipped 0.1%. More news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
As an AFA insider, you're part of a community that stands strong for biblical values and works tirelessly to influence culture and policy with truth, advancing biblical values and ensuring a stronger, upright America for our families and future generations. AFA Insider, formerly AFA Alert, informs you first about AFA's mission and aiding the church in its task of fulfilling the Great Commission. Sign up to receive AFA Insider emails at afa.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Hey, give me a second here, Ed. Come over, look at this. Tell me, I've got my computer screen pulled up,
and your
and
cursor.
I don't have my hand on the mouse, and the cursor's still bumping around, isn't it?
It is.
So, I mean, can you have a possessed computer screen, like a demonically possessed computer screen?
I don't think it's your screen. I think it's your mouse. That
my mouse has got a
perhaps
demon?
has some sort of entity controlling it.
You want to cast it out for me real quick?
I've never been trained in casting out
demons in a computer mouse control?
Computer mouse.
Okay.
I'll have to look up in my manual.
All right. You do that. You look up in your exorcism manual. See what you come up with there. Steve Paisley Jordan joined us now. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. It could be the fact that you're on the Google homepage. You know, they're one of the only big tech companies that hasn't
They're
started.
unholy?
They're
unholy?
They're one of the only big tech companies that hasn't started winding back its DEI stuff. Yeah. So.
Well, it just maybe other people have encountered.
It's probably some sort of vibration on the table itself.
Right. I'm picking up good vibrations.
Well, that's
you're giving me excitation.
Yeah, see, Steve is too.
Yeah, that's not what I meant, but I understand what you meant. But it's probably just something to do with.
Kind of weird because I've got
mine's not doing it.
I don't have my hand on the mouse that controls the.
It could be the power of your personality affecting it.
The aura.
The aura. Yes.
An aura. Wesley Wildman with us. Wesley, Ed, Steve Paisley, Jordan.
I actually know what song you're talking about.
You do? Good
yeah, just because that's what we play at the baseball games. That's where
you're talking Beach Boys.
Yep.
Back
you play the Beach Boys?
They play a variety of 70s
Different
and
music.
80s.
By the way, did you know
They're
that
retro?
Yeah,
they go retro.
Did you know that the Beach Boys, one of their closest friends, is Alex McPherson? Alex McFarland.
I was going to say,
I think I know
Alex
who you're
McPherson?
talking about.
Yeah,
Alex McFarland.
Alex McFarland knows the guys in the Beach Boys. He's actually played with them, not in a concert, but
you're making that up.
No, he's told me that before too.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, some of the Beach Boys, they're no longer with us.
Yeah.
But the ones who are remaining, Alex plays with. I didn't know Alex played an instrument.
Oh, he plays a guitar. I mean, he's not
I
world
had
class
no
or
idea.
anything, but yeah, he does.
I
And
had no idea.
This relationship with
I
the
didn't know
Beach
that.
Boy, I don't know if the one he's closest to, I don't know if it's the one that died or not, but they often talk, and Alex kind of shares spiritual truths with him and everything. So.
Yeah.
Dad plays the cello.
Yeah, well, I play a little bit with Van Halen.
Did you?
Yeah, I mean, it was like a few concerts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
On the cello?
Yeah, it's cellos. It was in the background.
Yeah.
But
you weren't right out
Well, the
front?
road just wore me out. You know what I'm saying? Huh?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
One stadium after another after
Yeah,
another.
don't even know what town you're in.
You don't know what town you're in. I couldn't go on like that.
I don't know how you do that. You could just you just take off and make something up out of whole cloth and never crack. Your personality just is just Mr. Dry. Mr. Drysdale.
I think we've lost control of this show.
Make
all of a
something
sudden.
up and make it sound like it's real.
All right. Steve, over to you.
Hey, I want to talk for a second about Elon Musk. Can we?
Absolutely. At this point, we'll talk about anything.
Elon Musk, as most people know, has multiple businesses that he runs, like intimately involved in their leadership and their tech decisions and everything. He's got a brain-computer startup called Neuralink that is exploring putting a chip into a human brain. Nothing complicated about that. Then there's the Boring Company, which drills tunnels.
Right.
He's got
quite efficiently.
Right. He's got a startup, an AI startup called XAI. He also has X, of course.
Right.
And he has Tesla. Right. So he's involved in all of those. Right. So you wonder where he's going to get the time to do this Doge thing, right?
Yes. The Department of Government Efficiency.
Right. And okay, on top of that, and he has been, I mean, he's been very, very active in that. On top of that, at the end of through the end of last year, through the end of July, he posted on X about 13,000 times. It's about 61 posts a day. So it's time to do that, right? Where's he finding the time?
Does he do that himself, or does he have somebody?
No, he does it himself. I got one more for you. He has just announced that he is one of the world's top players of the video game Diablo 4.
Interesting.
That is a game produced by, I think, Blizzard Entertainment. I've never played it.
Well,
I'm not going to play something called Diablo.
Right.
It means devil.
He has put a video out showing him going something called the pit in under 2 minutes. Apparently it's difficult. I don't play it either. A 29-year-old devotee to the Diablo game says it took him 80 hours to reach the 129th tier of pit. And he would have to play like all day, every day to get that. And Musk is doing everything else and plays. So there's a little bit of his multitasking. They talk about him on the phone. He's playing Diablo or whatever video game, and he's on the phone with SpaceX talking about rocket launches
While he's
playing a video game.
Now, I do something akin to that. I can watch a hockey game and talk to my wife at the same time.
Let's see how
Tim that's multitasking.
Yes, it is.
However, I have also experienced what Tim has talked about, the terror of not really paying attention to what your wife is saying.
You know what I just said,
and then hearing that question. What did I just say?
Right.
I think you said the Bruins are going to win.
So what you're saying is that this dude is a lot smarter than the rest of us.
And quicker. And he matches Trump. Trump is said to have been endless energy. I mean, he outruns his campaign staff half his age.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing. All right, I want to get to something a little more serious. In fact, quite a bit more serious. I just came across this, and it is truly disturbing.
By the way, let me just go ahead. This is very dark, folks. So I'm going to toss out a little parental advisory. Be careful if you have little ones listening, because this is horrifying. Okay.
So Canada is among the countries that has embraced euthanasia. And at first it was for terminally ill people that were in too much pain, and, within 3 months of death or so, then they could terminate or have a doctor help them terminate their own life. And we who oppose euthanasia have always said that's a slippery slope. We don't even under the best of circumstances, the 3-month thing, we don't like people playing God. I mean, it's your life from birth to natural death.
Yeah.
So euthanasia is bad on a whole lot of levels, but they have just some doctors in Canada are now suggesting killing euthanasia victims by taking their organs out for organ donation
before they die.
Before they're dead. I'm sure they're unconscious, but yeah.
Now that's to me is just that is demonic. Okay. The reasoning behind doing that, they're not the first ones to suggest that, but this is the first time I've heard of doctors making the recommendation that when you have people who are organ donors, the whole purpose, the success of organs being donated is to, I even hate to use this word, but this is the word they use, harvest those organs before the person is actually maybe officially dead. So maybe there's
brain dead, but
keep the body alive in order to harvest the organs, because that makes transplanting them more likely to be successful. So what these doctors are saying is somebody who is going to commit suicide, you want to take those organs before the poison completely takes effect, or whatever they're going to inject them, so you don't affect the organs. But the people are still alive.
Yeah. So I got a question for you, Ed. Is anybody making money off of organ donations?
It's hugely lucrative.
Then what could possibly go wrong with getting a process where you actually harvest or get the organs before the guy's dead? And maybe we should have more people, because we need organs,
Yes.
So let's reduce the bar. It's just
that's the temptation with all of these kinds of things, is that and people mock the idea of the slippery slope argument because it can be overused. In other words, if you start here, you wind up way down here. But this is a perfect example of how that slippery slope argument is actually true.
Yeah. Oh, it's not the only example. We had Oregon, I believe, has euthanasia as a state option, and it started also as terminally ill people that have no chance of recovery and they just don't want to go through the process. But now, if you're mentally disturbed, if you're depressed, and a psychologist thinks that you cannot get past the depression, and you want to kill your life, well, we've got, medical assisted dying. Let's go ahead and do that.
And that's in Oregon.
So this
is Canada that I was just talking about.
Yeah, but the United States illustration of the slippery slope was from
Oregon. Yeah.
Well, that's so parents, you can come back. You do whatever you want, but that was the story that we wanted to give, because who wants to explain to their children what it means to harvest organs before they're before the person's dead? That's terrifying.
Fuel for nightmares.
Yes.
All right. So we've been talking also now about Donald Trump and his expansionistic goals, right? He wants to buy Greenland and get over to take the Panama Canal and make Canada the 51st state.
Well, the Gulf of Mexico's going to be renamed the Gulf of America.
It is going to be renamed to the Gulf of America. In fact, this is what Trump said about that. Cut 12.
It's ours. We're going to be changing, sort of the opposite of Biden, where he's closing everything up, essentially getting rid of $50 to $60 trillion worth of assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate.
What does he mean by it's ours?
I guess he means if we want to take it, we can take it. I think he's kidding about that. I don't think that's.
How do you know
he's as cold as Ed is, Tim is when he talks about his jokes?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can never tell. No, good point. I can't read into his mind and say he's
you wouldn't
kidding.
Want to,
but I don't see that happening, is what I'm saying. And I don't see Rand McNally changing the maps or any of those kind of
Marjorie Taylor Greene's introducing legislation to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Yeah, but it's not a congressional prerogative.
Whose prerogative is it to name?
That's what I want to know.
That's good. That's a good point.
Well, you got to have somewhere to park Greenland.
We're going to move it.
Yeah, if you're going to move it, the Gulf of Mexico is a good place.
Does Rand McNally name the? No.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know who named Australia, and
right.
Can you change it? Well, Australia might be able to.
And most of those things are probably ancient.
But New Zealand can't change Australia's name. And what I'm saying is we don't own the Gulf of Mexico.
Well, then how did it become Gulf of Mexico?
That's a great question. I don't know who named it. This probably goes back to the time when the Spanish came over and conquered Mexico and Central and South America, and they just called it the Gulf of Mexico, and then everybody else did.
I saw some editorial that was naming all of Trump's acquisition goals as the Don Roe Doctrine.
The Don Roe instead of Monroe Doctrine?
Exactly.
After the former president. Well, my son told me something about he saw a meme on X or social media somewhere. Someone had posted a video or a picture of Trump looking down at his computer screen, and then, of course, the next frame is you see what he was looking at, and it's his Amazon account and what was in his cart. And what's in his cart is Greenland and Canada and the Panama Canal.
Right.
And those are all the things he's buying next.
Well, listen, guys, if you put 4 or 5 of them out there and you get 2 of the 5, that's pretty good. You grab a Greenland, you grab a Canada, and then you move on and say, look, we lost the other 3, but we got these 2.
Not like we're playing Risk.
Yes, playing Risk.
I think Vladimir Putin said that about 4 years ago, and see where that got
us. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the same problem with with Greenland.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to.
Oh, there's not an army in Greenland to resist?
Not all 56.
50,000 people we learned yesterday.
Yeah, maybe they do have a
Our Navy may be met by the fishing boats.
Well,
as we try to come up.
He's talking about buying Greenland, not
straight up.
invading.
That's right.
Right now. Well,
good clarification.
Well, that's
a big
right.
difference.
Yeah.
Well, hold on just a minute.
Okay.
I said hold on just a minute.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you hear me?
I'm holding.
I said it emphatically. Trump did say he wouldn't rule out using the military.
For which one?
That was to prevent China or Russia from doing something,
That's right.
Or did I get that wrong?
Maybe it was also to help with the deportations.
All right, Wesley, you're the Google master.
About to get Googled up.
I'm telling you, I saw this on the news earlier today. Type in Trump doesn't rule out military and see what comes up.
For which 5? Which of the 5? Greenland?
Just type that phrase in and see what comes up.
I think that was a Panama Canal. Yeah. Well, no, it's both.
That's what I'm talking about. What did he say? What did Trump say?
We need full context here, and that could take a minute.
Hey, National Review, Trump won't rule out military economic coercion to take control of Greenland.
And
so I wasn't lying.
No, you weren't.
And Panama Canal.
And
the Panama, that's a twofer.
Now, the Panama Canal, I totally agree with. I don't think we should have ever given control of the Panama
You know what
Canal.
They call people who give stuff away and take it back?
I got just absolutely ran over.
Call them American givers.
I'm fixing to say I used the other phrase, and my word, I didn't know we were a PC program, but apparently we are.
What, Indian givers?
Yeah, you should
all right, get them.
Yeah,
that's the expression. We're all kind of dancing around.
Yeah, well, that's what we've always said, but I haven't heard Indians say it.
I don't listen. My understanding is Indian is fine, just as valid as Native Americans. Indians themselves call themselves Indians,
right?
But it is a little hypocritical for us to use the expression Indian giver,
right?
When really it was
when we were about to take back Panama.
Well, we were the ones taking stuff back from Indians when we signed treaties.
Just to be clear, we're talking about feather, not dot.
Okay.
Oh man.
Okay, so the point of this is, I told y'all that President-elect Trump, soon to be the president in the White House, he said he would not rule out using the military to take Greenland and to take Panama.
Well, he said he would not rule out using military or economic coercion to take control of the Panama Canal and Greenland. I personally think, again, I don't know what's in Donald Trump's mind. The military would probably be more appropriate to use for the Panama Canal.
All right,
because there's Chinese everywhere around there.
Yeah, that's right.
With quote unquote business ventures, and in the event of a war with Taiwan, they'll blow that thing up.
Okay, can I just say something without being dunked in the water by MAGA? Okay, for just a minute.
I doubt it, but
Can't speak for MAGA, but yeah,
Okay.
Go ahead. Take your best shot.
Let me just say something about this, because you laugh it off. We laugh it off.
Yeah.
Because Trump says a lot of stuff that's just so outlandish. It can't be.
Canada's not going to become the 51st state.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
For example,
Yeah.
you just go, that's just Trump being Trump. Well, okay. When the left says and others say, now hear me out. Don't that Trump has a dictatorial attitude toward governing.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff they're talking about.
They'll point to that as an
They'll
example.
point to that, and we'll just say, oh, come on, he doesn't really mean that. But when he says, I would say, and listen, I can joke around with the best of them, but I don't think a president should say stuff about using our military that he doesn't mean.
He didn't say you would. He said he wouldn't rule it out.
Can I add some context to this?
Hold on. Let me finish. Okay. So you might say, well, come on, Tim. He doesn't mean he's not going to invade the fishermen. And our Navy's not going to be taking on the fishermen of Greenland.
Right.
He's the one that said it. They asked him, and he said, I wouldn't rule out taking Greenland by force with the military. Go ahead. What's the context for that?
The reporter did ask him specifically if the military's on the table, and he says he's not ruling it out, but I say that because I would be stupid to answer that question. You don't talk about tactics
No,
out
that's
loud.
not an answer.
That's what he said.
No, well, that's not an answer. That's a dumb answer.
Not what Steve's saying.
Not what Steve said.
Right.
No, Trump shouldn't say that. Trump should say, we're not going to invade Greenland with our military. Come on. Next question.
Yeah.
He should not say, I don't know, we might. Wesley, you were going to say what?
Nothing.
Do you have anything in defense of President Trump on this one?
On Panama Canal, yes, I would leave that on the table. What for Greenland? No.
Well, that's what Ed said.
Yeah, I support Ed for president.
But Greenland,
2028.
you're not sending the Marines to land on Greenland?
No.
Okay.
No chance.
First of all, it's a non-starter with Greenland. Denmark would have to grant Greenland
take them first.
Independent.
I do get something to add at the end here.
Go ahead.
Denmark would have to grant Greenland independence first. Then Greenland would have to vote to be bought by the United States. So that, to me, that's a non-starter. But, however, to your point, Tim, if we invade Denmark first and take that, then we get Greenland.
Okay. So anyway, go ahead, Wesley. What are you going to say anything about this?
I don't want to get too serious here. Are we going to get? Is it okay if I get?
I'm going to say I agree with Tim.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you should not joke around about taking away the sovereignty of other nations. Listen, the CIA does that enough. Mm-hmm. The CIA actually does this in overthrowing governments, okay? I'm not sure I agree with 98% of what the CIA does in terms of that, but you should not publicly – it's humiliating, and I don't think you should – throw your weight around to say, hey, we're going to take Canada, or, hey, we're going to take, we're going to, you know what, Mexico, you have no say in it. It's now the Gulf of America, Caribbean island
nations. That's how he operates.
I just think that, and folks, for those of you who are supporters of Donald Trump, for the next 4 years, we are sometimes going to criticize the president because we talk about issues. And so please don't scream at us. We're glad he's the president.
Right.
We're glad Kamala Harris is not. But we are going to at times criticize him as well as support probably 95% of what he does.
He does need to be a little bit more. Forget that.
Next story.
Just really quickly.
He does need to be a little bit more careful, I think, in his language.
The Babylon Bee is celebrating the fact that the fact checkers are gone from Facebook, and they have listed the top times that the Babylon Bee was actually fact-checked in their satire. One was CNN purchases an industrial-sized washing machine to spin the news before publication. Someone actually fact-checked that as false. And this one, too. Ocasio-Cortez appears on The Price is Right, guessing everything is free. No, she didn't.
They fact-checked those?
They fact-checked those.
Well, I'm glad they had time to waste. It's a satirical website. It was never intended to be believed as fact.
Good thing Facebook got to get rid of their third-party fact checker.
I wonder if the Navy will be taking cruises to Greenland.
Just doing a drive-by?
And
hey, listen.
You can pay to be on the ship.
It's kind of like the mafia. You just drive by slowly.
It's like China and Taiwan.
You gonna sell your business to me or not?
All right, folks, have a great day. Thank you for listening.